There's Doug.
Hola, Sam. Sorry you got hit.
Okay.
Unbelievable.
Isn't that just a new whacked-out teenagers for you?
It's more malignant than that. That's not just teenagers with idle time. This is 4chan world stuff. You know what I mean? It's not as benign as a bunch of teenagers having fun. Hello, Harry.
Let me text Jazz Winter and tell him we're back. Oh, here's there. I will be on screen momentarily. It's really me.
Careful.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could take much more. My poor little heart.
Yeah, no more no cosplay, please.
Oh,
Well, you don't have to be ridiculous.
Hello, Tammy.
now, if I took screenshots of all those names, is there any way that they could be like traced back and held accountable?
That I don't know. They're probably not real, probably not traceable, probably logged in via VPN.
I bet you that there are some that didn't take those kind of precautions, because not everybody in those groups are like you have the really smart leaders, but then you have a lot of people that get sucked up that have no idea. What?
You can submit it to Zoom. There's no way we can do it, but Zoom could do it.
Yeah, that's what I figured. Okay, I'm going to do that. I took the pictures.
Oh, hi.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Little bit of excitement.
I apologize for oversleeping today, okay? I apologize.
That's okay.
I stopped doing that.
You know what? There are no accidents. Oh, sorry. No, but there are no accidents, and it's kind of good that happened now so that we could get ahead of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
By the way, for the record, when I got on, I did kick off someone called Jane and someone called the police.
Yeah, I'll send you my screenshots too. Oh, I could do it here.
I wouldn't have considered that an accident, but I don't know what you mean by that, Stacy. That was deliberate.
No. I mean Sam oversleeping and not being there to address it. Like it gave us time for the whole situation to play out.
Yeah, and it was sort of perfect storm because I was running late and in a car, so it was like there was absolutely nothing I could do other than drive off the road.
Glad you didn't do that.
I'm glad I didn't either. Pissed me off.
Exactly. Yeah, I take a viewpoint of everything is a experiment, meaning everything's always changing. Nothing's ever the same. Some things change small, then sometimes they change fast. But this idea everything happens for a reason, that only makes sense to me from a scientific point of view, that, you know, these molecules hit those molecules, or this asshole did whatever he did, which is what happened to us today. But yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one for our faith discussion. If that statement is true, and what does it mean? Because when people say that, I always think that it's some kind of
Well, it in the context of us, there are, you know, 4 sessions a week that are, you know, regular fare, and all of them need to be sort of securitized, obviously, until Zoom sorts themselves out.
oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, you have to have a lot.
So it happening now is, you know, it sort of raises the flag to tend to that.
Yeah, this is just it. People can't leave well enough alone, can they?
I'm pretty sure there's also a way of assigning a passcode,
Yeah,
so that somebody has to have that for the room, and then you set up a back channel for notifying people of the passcode. We could use the GCC admin or use some other messenger channel for people to.
Well, when Stacy called me, she said it's also possible, and I do know this, to set up a lobby so that you approve people coming in. And that's probably even easier, because
Yeah.
setting up a new URL is just going to confuse people, I think. So
Yeah,
just
Yeah,
would probably still work.
better to have a doorman. Yep.
Can I just share a story remembrance of one of Fleming's conversational experiments?
that you've mentioned before. No, I wasn't there, but
Harry, were you there?
This one.
The one where he did some sort of mix with another kind of
Oh, yeah.
broadcast media, and they it was whatever it was, and it was flipping through all kinds of different stuff, and then there was the guy whacking off, and I was like, okay,
I'm
no,
out.
I had a full reaction. It was amazing, and I literally got angry with this gorgeous indignation. And yeah, it was intense though. I actually didn't go for a few weeks after that, or a couple weeks after that, because it was like, I actually don't want to have that experience.
Well, the layers of violence in what just happened are just beyond. There are so many layers of violence embedded in it. The people, the being on the receiving end of it, uninvited, the women that are featured in the material that's being imposed, and just there are so many layers of violence to that. It's really
Well, welcome to reality.
really insane.
Hi.
Hi.
Nice to see everyone. Was there anyone here who, not here, who was here and joined?
Yeah, Alex.
Yeah.
Alex was here.
That reminds me, Jazz, of the time you posted that Barbie doll, and I had a visceral reaction. Barbie doll atheist or something, I remember. I thought that was quite
that had a lot of that had a lot of effect.
Strange
Well, I stayed on for a while. There were some kids playing on a pornography website. One of them thought I was a Muslim. I tried to have a conversation with them, but they were just chuckling away, and they were really busy enjoying themselves. Kids who've got nothing else to do. It wasn't anything serious. It wasn't anything malicious. It wasn't really worth engaging with either, really. Just harmless teenage fun, kind of thing we used to do when we were teenagers, except we didn't have Zoom.
Yeah.
Nothing serious.
Well, there's different levels of it, and it's interesting because I I've been brought up in a way that you you don't treat relationships like a sport. So you get this world of what is it, Tinder, where you flick left and flick right, and I've had some experiences myself from being how do you say, close to that world but not part of that world. So it's like you could almost think that that TV station that you were watching is sort of playing over in the living room whenever I want to go look. Like, so how do you live in a world where that's everywhere? It's like, is that why they wrote the Bible and put people in jail?
We are in a world where that's everywhere. And the thing that came through to me just now was that you're personalizing it, like it's aimed at you. They didn't
No, I'm
know
saying
who.
that wasn't aimed at me, but I'm saying you can actually live in a life where more subtly it's even more visceral because it's there all the time. And do you get desensitized to it, or do you
We're
say,
protected, Colin, there's so much happening in the world today. We don't get to see an iota of it because we're protected. We live in a cocoon. This is a nice world. Don't look outside. Don't look at any TV channels that we're not giving to you.
yes,
Everything is filtered. We get a moment of unfiltered, raw input, and we're screaming at it.
well, no, hold on. You're thinking that I'm trying to project upon what happened. No, it's not like that. It's more like I know it exists. I mean to say, everywheres or in places. It's just that I don't want to be in those places. And when you find yourself suddenly, infected by it, like for today, it was a rush for Doug, and he says, he was pissed off, right? Well, what if it was suddenly needling away at you like a little, I don't know, just present. What if you move to an area of town where you're not used to it? How would you adapt, and how long would it take for you to become desensitized? Would be another way to say it. Or would you become?
Roughly about 10 seconds.
Okay, enough of that.
Well, it's a
Actually,
valid topic because this
yeah,
is
it's
about
great.
unblocking, and this
Yeah,
is about detachment, and this is about self-awareness and self-control.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Could
So,
we just define when we're, because I'm not sure. I mean, there was more than one disturbing part to that whole incident. So for me, I'm actually more disturbed that a group of people were able to get into a call and wreak havoc in whatever way. That's separate from the porn part of the equation. So when we talk
So
about it,
that's easy
we
to
should,
address, Stacy. Sorry to interrupt you, but
no, fine.
because this has actually not ever happened before, we just erred on the side of making it easy for people to join. The ability to assign a password has always been there. The ability to have people wait in a lobby has always been there. Zoom has always included those features, but we've not taken advantage of them because it's never been necessary. So, this is being the first time, I guess now we have to reassess that.
Well, I'm also thinking, I'm sorry, Tam.
Oh,
I'll be quick.
I just wondered who, Sam, are you hosting?
Yeah, see, normally I do host and record
Is-
on Saturdays and Sundays.
Right,
Yeah, so this is my session. This is my account, yes.
right, just because you can kick them out.
Yes, and immediately when I saw that and I heard from Stacy, I immediately kicked those people out.
Right, got it, thanks. Sorry, I caught the 30 seconds, so I didn't have the full trauma. And yeah, so I maybe 4 or 5 seconds, but 4 or 5 seconds was plenty for me.
I'm glad I'm on my little phone. I can't see so good.
Oh,
Yeah, it wasn't really a surprise to me because all the media flooded with the fact that Zoom has to lose its innocence. It's always been geared at being easy to use, and now everybody's using it. And of course, there are always a small percentage of people trying to find the flaws and abuse them, which is happening right now, right here. So it's not a big surprise. It's no big deal to me. Zoom just lost its innocence, and we have to follow that one.
It probably wouldn't be very difficult to write a script to try the numbers, and then it's almost like fishing. Just a
Oh yes.
Not even that bad. Our group is public, and our group has had these URLs for about 2 years. So it's not been difficult to find this particular one.
No.
Yeah.
So just waiting rooms and password next time.
Well, I'm
Uh,
just thinking, sorry, all I wanted to say is that I'm thinking with all these people that are now using Zoom that are not used to it, it would be, you know, like I kind of would like to be able to educate them a little bit. I'm not the one to do it because I don't understand enough about how to, you know, but I just think that, you know, something not in somewhere hidden in a Medium article or somewhere where people that don't normally read about this stuff would never find it, but just like a public service kind of thing on Facebook even, of just how to set it up and, you know, what to do.
It's all there.
I'll look
Tab,
around. I
yeah,
suspect
cut you off.
somebody's already written such an article. Yeah, I definitely. In fact, someone yesterday didn't attend the session that I had set up precisely because she had heard that this is going on with Zoom. So evidently it's been making the rounds.
Well, it's really nice to see everyone, and I'm just really curious. Where's everyone at? What's life like in lockdown?
Yeah, I would like a check-in more than discussing this.
Well, I've been doing a lot of catch up on ancient history. One of the things I really wanted to study was ancient Indian history, going back to Paleolithic times. In the last 3 or 4 days, I've had some really good sessions. Some of the Indians, the youngsters have really been doing some excellent research, and they're debunking the Orion theory. I don't know if you've heard of the Orion theory, that the Orions invaded India approximately sometime before Alexander, and less than 2000 BC. So we're looking at about 4,000 to 2,000 years ago, maybe even little as 1,500 years. But they're really digging into it and not finding much evidence for the Orion theory. And it seems to look like it's a British plant to cause some confusion in the Indian peoples way back about 400 or 500 years ago. And I'm spending a lot of time on those websites. I'm complete.
You said Aryan, not Orion. So the people, not the star system.
There's a difference in the pronunciation depending on where you come from, whether it's Aryan or Orion, or it's somewhere from the Balkans, or maybe even as far north as Lithuania, but there is no evidence for it. And Hitler really took a liking to the Aryan race and decided that that's where the Europeans came from. I have no idea at this stage. More research. I'm complete.
I'll go. Because I'm probably in a unique situation here. I essentially 3.5 years ago, close to 4, almost decided to self-isolate up here in Kamano Island. So for Ronnie and me, it's actually been probably as easy a transition to imposed quarantine as I could imagine anyone being in. There's even fewer cars going by now. The buses don't go by, so only the mail truck goes by. And other than that, there's like 1 or 2 construction cars that go by. I don't even know why they're continuing this construction 3 houses down here. And then we've got our 5 dogs and a cat. And so life really has not changed very much other than I normally go to Costco at least once a week. Now it's been 2.5 weeks since I've been to Costco. And because it's so remote, one of the first things I did when I got here was buy an extra refrigerator in the garage and stocked it reasonably well in cases for, storms, power outages, road closures, severe weather. And that's definitely been very, very helpful in this situation. So it's been 2.5 weeks since I went, and I still have probably at least a month or two of supplies that could keep us alive. So I feel very, very fortunate, very lucky to be in the situation I am. I cannot imagine quarantining in a easier scenario than I'm in right now. So I consider myself fairly blessed. Over.
Thanks, Sam. I recognize part of what you're saying. I'm just also basically in this little apartment over here. I already spend most of my time in this space and just walking outside and working online. So my life hasn't changed that much either. I won't visit some clients, which I sometimes do. I won't go to bars and restaurants, but I kind of like it. Life has simplified. Life has slowed down. I totally appreciate that one, and I hope we learn from that, because everybody is running in the hamster wheel, and now everything is basically brought back to those essential things. We know now what's important, and the rest of it is basically luxury or bullshit or whatever. So I kind of like the situation too, not denying all the bad things and the ugly things and the painful things that are happening. This is basically, for me, a prelude to what needs to happen anyway.
Yeah, thanks, Harry. I forgot to mention one thing. Up until this thing was happening, I'd been going through a stretch of at least 4 or 5 months where I was actually on the road probably 3 out of every 4 weeks. Not the entire week, but at least 2 or 3 days, and sometimes up to 5. And that shut down to a zero. I should have been, in fact, last week I was supposed to be in Orlando, Florida. So I was obviously not going through this crisis. That event has been pushed out to August. So yeah, I definitely agree with you, Harry. It's slowed down a bit, and I work remotely anyway. So this has actually been very, very, very fortunate. Over.
Mhm.
And the resistance of many companies to work online is evaporated in a day, right? Because now there's a need, and it's totally possible. So with that, I'm complete for the moment. Thank you. And happy to see you all.
Go. Yeah, very interesting times. Uh, I keep thinking that it's a pivot point because yeah, and I've actually heard. I started watching some of Raymond Powell's video he posted in one of the, I think the PKE Messy Banter chat group, if anybody knows what that is. And it's pretty good. And they talked about it might be the golden time where the next 10 years decides what happens for the next maybe several generations when it comes to certain things. I seem to feel that with, this virtual world becoming real, the meta and the abstract being manipulatable, as we saw this morning. And the security that we can lose in these times of fear, or I shouldn't say security, I guess freedoms we could lose while we try to gain security, because I think this is where people have plans in the waiting for when the chickens are all scared, then they build the fence higher, take their numbers and say, over here, over here. But that's that's a negative view. It's also, I think it's going to be a lot of positive come out of this, because I think a lot of people are educated and connected and aware, and that may shock people into the real change mode. So that's kind of something I'm looking forward to. but that's not much because I'm more scared about the people around me. People going to Tim Hortons for coffees, you know, just catching it off the cups, right? It's just so. I guess it's all just to limit the curve, but I think that it's with the bad response from the United States and that, you know, this is like 10 times worse than the flu, and the flu is already really bad. And so I guess it's taken a bit for people to get scared. In fact, I'm sure there's a lot of people that are still slugging it off, thinking that it shouldn't be such a big deal. I hear that. There may be some truth to that. I don't know. I doubt it.
Let's get the stock market back.
Yeah. Well, that's the huge other side of it. That's scary as well, the economics. And so health first, and people who have jobs, and like that's going to be part of the paradigm shift. I shouldn't go on very much, but or the pivot. Like I think the whole world of automation and AI and that whole thing is going to really start to shake out, and people ordering online more and more. Who wants to go to the store when you can be safer buying at home? And wouldn't it be a flip of fate where someone who works from home actually gets a bonus from working from home now, as opposed to, you know, being, I think, you know, it's been a long time coming, being able to work remotely for me, and I've been looking forward to it. This isn't the way I wanted to do it, you know? So yeah, it'd be kind of a flip that you actually get paid a premium if you can work from home. Be a safer employee, I don't know, but yeah, it's really weird. So the next month is really, I think, going to start to form what it's going to look like as people come out of their caves. You know, how do they come out of their caves? And, you know, is everybody going to have a mask? Is mask going to be the new tattoo? Anyway, we'll leave it there.
Can I do a little fact check, Colin? Is Tim Hortons still open? Are cafes and all that still open where you live?
Yeah, the way it works is I think most of the restaurants are takeout only. So I think you'd be wise to have a glove and transfer into another container, but I don't know. Like Sam says, if everybody's in complete fear of even going to Tim Hortons, the economy will never come back. So it's quite a thing.
Okay, here they're all closed, just saying.
I'm sorry to have to do this, but I have to bite my tongue. At a time where it's permissible to take this political, I will chime in again.
I'll check in because similar to Harry and Sam, I've been isolating more and more for the past 5 years. And in the past 5 weeks, I've been basically sick since March 8th. So I've been home anyway. So this has been pretty easy for me because I get to come and visit people like you. What does concern me, and I'm bridging over to where Sam's going to want to jump in later, is that the more physically isolated we are, the easier it is to be manipulated through different kinds of technological means. I mean, most of you know I spend time in a lot of different groups just to see what the feel is. And some of these things that I'm seeing, and they're all different, but, and it's very clear there's a different manipulative message targeted to each specific group. And it doesn't just affect people that you say, oh, they're not that bright. No, it affects all of us. You know, I don't know which pieces to believe and what not, you know, what not to believe, what to believe. For me personally, it's motivated me to develop my own sense of intuition more because I can't trust anything out there. That being said, I am concerned that maybe we're being set up for a war. I'm concerned about a lot of things. I don't know which is right, but I will say one thing. I think that part of the reason they're leaving those churches open is that they are counting on this under this evangelical thing that's going on with these conspiracies thrown in. It's kind of scary what some of the stuff I'm reading, and that there are a lot of people that are really buying into it, and people that are respected. That's what's scary. And with that, I'm complete.
Josh?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just sort of, I feel like everything's looping.
Feel like what?
It's just looping. Like everything's looping. Like it's like, we're scared. Oh no, we're okay. Oh no, we're scared. Oh no, we're okay. Our government's taking care of us. Oh no, it's not. They don't care. It's just looping. It's like, it's just bouncing, and everyone is just reacting as opposed to proacting. I just feel like there's a lot of reaction and less proaction. That's where I'm at. I'm complete. Thank you. It's good to hear all you guys and good to see everyone, and good to not, I don't know. I don't feel like anyone feels blocked as much as just constrained, if that makes any sense. There's borders, and the constrained feeling is I can't take it anymore. I don't like that feeling. It feels very like, oh, okay, I can go and do, oh, I can't. Oh, that's where I'm at. So it's yeah, it hurts. It hurts my soul. My soul is sad.
So for me, there's no change in terms of my existence because I was substantially at home, same deal, and most all work through online basically. So I was feeling at a loss for a while, and that finally lifted. On a personal level, I'm out the back end of a medical situation that puts me right in the crosshairs of somebody who would be taken out if I come into contact with this thing, because my immune system is right now is probably 10%. So I'm just heading into Ayurvedic and holistic herbal and other things to get that back up to snuff. But I sort of, have to be careful and watch my P's and Q's. And also recognize that my best efforts don't mean anything. A box of cereal from the supermarket could be a carrier. It's like, who the hell, there's no way I could execute a sterile environment protocol in my life with my wife that would guarantee that I don't contact this thing. So I'm not living in fear, and not that I had fear in my life before, but this hasn't put me in fear, and I've been working for a while now on the sort of focusing on what to do generatively, what to contribute generatively to the change that I would see or want or have in the world after all of this. And I feel like I have a lot more company doing that now, all around the world, like bottom up, mostly invisible. In terms of any kind of mass market or media or any of that stuff. But there's just huge movement and energy toward creating new and using this as a cold reboot and an opportunity to not feed or support the old paradigm stuff that didn't make sense before, but now we have an opportunity to not go back to it, and to stand up and explore and pursue the new, and encourage and support that grassroots. So I'm finding myself really busy, like a lot of threads, a lot of different things, communities, and collaborations that are in service to that. And at the same time, I was born and raised in New York. We moved out to Michigan a year ago, but I'm a New York City kid, and I've already lost people. So that part of this is, and I think it was the best case scenario was 100 to 240,000, and we're executing the worst case scenario from a leadership place, and it's just not, nothing that needs to be done is being done to avert the worst case. And the worst case is over 2 million people are going to die from this in the United States. And this country hasn't really been touched with that scale of casualty amongst civilians. And that's a really big difference. It's a really big difference, because nobody that's died or is going to has asked for it. They're just cannon fodder. And pretty much at that scale, everybody in this country is going to know somebody, is going to have a relationship to somebody that died. So to shift out of the maudlin and to the back end, I think this is a long haul. Like, there's no prayer for a shift to something else until there's a vaccine and everybody's had it. So that's 18 months to 2 years out. And during that time, the level of global fear means everybody's in feeling. And if everybody's in feeling, it means everybody's in learning and open. And there's just a huge opportunity. Huge opportunity. And I'd like to be one of the workers on the light side of that, on the positive contribution and future we want side of that. And so I'm just really focusing my time and attention and energy on maximizing that, that work. And I don't really have or want to give any time or energy to fear, to the forces of darkness, to anything old paradigm that's in its, last gasp, trying to hold on and make the last buck before they're out of business. That kind, there's just this universe out there and the conspiracy theories and all of the spin masters and the schmucks that broke into our meeting this morning. So I just have no desire to give them any time or energy. I will not feed those wolves. And that's it for me. I'm complete.
Thanks, Doug. And I want to just take the space to acknowledge that I know that you do what you do.
You're muted.
It's really good to have all of you. And it's really good to see you two back.
We've been busy in our own way with our own process. One thing that I did learn from the GCC is that it's not about us coming together in order to agree or have a global collaboration that involves all of us. It's just about me being me, doing my thing in my way. And the first healing I need to do to this global system is to heal me and to become present to who I am. That's basically reporting back from my journey. I haven't been away, I've been working mostly on myself. I have to acknowledge that. And then I got this global collaboration happening. And basically, Temming and I being together for me is an example of, yes, we have to connect globally and do the work locally, very hyper locally. I was visiting a webinar about complexity by Dave Snowden and a few other very, very smart, well-educated people. And they basically bring out the same thing. Because everything is so chaotic and so complex at this moment, all we have to navigate is the few square meters around us and be the best we can with the people next to us. It's nice to kind of have conversations about this together on a global scale like we do. All of you in different places of the world. I'm very blessed to share that. But it's all about what do I do in this moment, here, right now.
It's kind of like
thinking. So Colin, come.
yeah, it's kind of like we're all birds that kind of say this is an okay tree. This is an okay tree. Just hang out here for a while.
Speaking of birds, I'll check in. Well, I'm in the Netherlands. Obviously, we got here the day after the first case showed up. And yeah, it's been a month now. And it's been beautiful here. And I've been having a bit of a love affair with the birdies outside. There's, I don't know, it's just, there's the sweetness of nature. And really just being present with this place. And yeah, I feel where we're at, and it feels very destabilizing. And at the same time, I know that my work is to be strong in myself and to take care of myself first. So I've been doing that, walking on the earth and really appreciating the beauty while being present with the grief that is the great trauma of this moment. And also the opportunity, as you say, Doug. I mean, it's obvious. We, like the emperor's clothes are torn off. And I think it's an opportunity to really look at what we believe and what is the current economy and system. Okay. So I think, yeah, I think it's an opportunity to Rosa, Harry's daughter. So I'm curious what we can do and be and show, and yeah, I'm glad to see everyone here and to feel like I have the space inside to be present with you all. So with that, I'm in.
I think I'm going to have to log in so I can see us all at once. It's not satisfying leaving Josh on the back screen there. Stacy.
I'll I'll get rid of my first screen.
No, no, no. Don't take me the wrong way, dear. Think I.
Josh?
Josh?
I was just going to share something pretty awesome I stumbled upon yesterday. Because everyone's reconnecting, it was really fun. An old friend of mine from British Columbia, when I visited twice, I became friends with a young man at the time who's now in his late 30s. And he called me to freestyle rap because he just missed the energy when I was up there. We were freestyling all the time. And after our freestyle, he said, "What are you up to?" And I said, "Oh, I'm building hexagon houses. It's been a passion." He goes, "Are you still doing that?" And I said, "Yeah, I just, I definitely need to learn how to 3D model." And he goes, "Well, that's what I do for a living." And he jumped on his computer and just 3D modeled the whole thing in about 25 minutes. He started it. And so that led me on a little adventure yesterday to see if I could 3D model myself and afford the software. So I found the software for free, started 3D modeling, and it was just a life changer because I went from thinking in 2D, grabbing an object and pulling it into 3D, and my whole brain shifted yesterday. I just wanted to share that. It was one of the things Dr. Yuval Harari keeps talking about is this new paradigm is the ability to adapt. And so that was a new skill I started yesterday. And I just thought it was really interesting at how my brain could shift so much in, it's not even been 24 hours since that happened yesterday. And my whole brain has shifted, starting looking at the world from a flat surface that I pull out. So every object I'm looking at now, I'm wondering how I would grab it and change it. And, how would I 3D model this glass and all the ridges that are inside of it? And it's fun to look at the world. Also, another thing that happened, which was quite paradigm changing, is an intellectual named Brett Weinstein, who started a movement called the Portal to break us out of this stuckness we've been in theoretical physics for the last 50 years. He released a lecture from Oxford of his theory of everything. So he just released it this week.
Really?
Of how we could unify quantum physics. And the amount of breakthroughs that are going on right now with everybody just being at home and learning new skills and all this new energy is really fascinating. That's why I feel stuck, is because it's just like, oh my gosh, we can go now, but then we can't go hang out and meet each other. That's just killing me. But it's really exciting. It's a really, really exciting time. I mean, I did notice on Saturday to go into the Saturday call, the password was there, and I don't know if the Saturday call happened. But did I hear right that this morning there was no password on the Zoom? Because I didn't have to use it to log in. I'm wondering why there was a password on my Zooms yesterday, but none on this one. Do you know what that was, Doug?
Zoom has because of the recent intrusions, they've shifted so that there's automatic on settings related to passwords and related to something else. There were two dimensions to it. Okay, Zoom will enable the waiting room feature and require additional password settings for all users on free accounts. So they're sort of turning on a couple of security protocols automatically when you go to open a room. And I got hit with that yesterday as well in another group where somebody opened the room and everybody tried to log in and nobody had the password, and we had to scramble to figure out how to get everybody that.
And so what does that mean, the way we publish at GCC in that open document on the Facebook group? If we publish the password, then everybody has the password?
I think Sam fixed today by doing the waiting room, and then, that enabled him to select people that could get in, and it filtered out the intruders. But But the other is, it's sort of like, dual channel authentication. So, you're going to have to go someplace else. We use Messenger in that other situation, because everybody, of course, reached out to everybody through an alternative channel to say, I can't get in, or I need a passcode. And that same channel provided the means to distribute the passcode. So I think, those are the two sort of features.
Got it.
Actually, for the record, I did not enable the lobby. I just got on, and because I was the owner of this account, I was able to kick people off, whereas you guys were guests and therefore couldn't do that. Over.
No, you were able to kick people out, but how did you keep them out?
Actually, I've not seen anybody yet join that was, again, acting in that fashion.
Gotcha.
Ever since I got on and kicked them off, it's only been the regular people.
Gotcha.
Well, I also heard a cool song last night from a guy named Brett Dennen, which was my favorite song about 15 years ago. And I listened to it again, and it's more poignant and powerful today. And it's a song called All We Need Is Love. And it's a really beautiful song. If anyone's interested, I can try to post it in the chat. Brett Dennen, All We Need. Very beautiful. Hope and love and understanding, and we won't have power over us, and we can't keep paving over this world. We just can't keep paving over this world. That's just one of my, globalization is a real thing. And it was just interesting to hear a songwriter that was around in the early 2000s still be relevant today. It just shows that we haven't really solved the problems that were going on in 2003. They're still happening today. And that's frustrating that we are still paving over this world. Like, my dream, my unblocking dream for the world is to take all the cement and rip it out of all the roads and use it to build shelters and structures for people that need it, and let the earth breathe. That's the thing that really irks me the most, is that our watershed is really important, especially with global warming. It's the water that actually creates the weather. And when the water is not flowing properly and the moisture is not coming up out of the ground, it creates things like the Sahara Desert in Africa, which used to be completely green. And so just being aware of the earth is our skin. And if it can't breathe, if it's paved over, it doesn't work. And I wonder if the blood is the oil inside the earth. All of that oil that we're pulling out, what is that going to do to the structure of the earth over time? Like, is that a real necessary need for lubrication for earthquakes and volcanoes, et cetera, et cetera? Does that change the way the earth's crust moves? So I'm just wondering if we can think a little bit more about how we want to steward the earth. Not just complain about climate change, but actually actually look after ecosystems that are depleting. Go ahead, Jaswinder.
What we're taking out of the earth, we replace with either water or a slurry of chemicals in water. When we come down to doing fracking, that's a slightly different story, in that we actually pump hot water and chemicals into the rock structure to crack up the rock and release the oil and the gas that way. And that does cause damage in the strata. So either way, we are damaging the substructure deep down, and it is having consequences already. And in my humble opinion, and I'm not alone in this, which I'm very glad to say, the sooner we stop drilling for oil and deep mining, the better. no more carbon-based fuels, fossil fuels at all, if we can help it. And if we can move on to that straight away from coronavirus onwards, that would be excellent. I'm complete.
So I'd love to share something if everybody would be willing, that came yesterday to me in a working session with a group. It's a group of people that are all pretty evolved. I guess that's the best way I can say it. And we were convened by somebody without knowing exactly what for, but we've been sort of thinking about what to do in the face of all of this. And I've been in Zoom land, insanely in Zoom land forever. And so the expression for it, incorporates these practices, these conversational practices. And the conversation was sort of flowing around, what to do. And it was doing. And I realized that's a problem. Like what the world needs right now is a lot of being. As sort of a fundamental core paradigm shift. Like, why don't we start with actually using what's going on to connect with being together? And so this is what came to me. I'm gonna do a screen share if I can get my desktop set up in such a way so that it is visible.
Yeah, hide the porn. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, no porn, just way too many tabs. So this, so this was sort of the first download I got, and it started with the idea of just a place to be loved. And then I realized, well, through an experiential level, what does love mean? And that's when the breakout sort of happened. And part of the goal was to express it in as simple and reduced and essential way as possible. And this is what sort of came out. So the idea is creating sessions that are a place to just be. And in them to create a field, create a container where people can be held, which is sort of the metaphor, the virtual physical, be loved, be heard, be valued, and be together. And it sort of are all the experiential dimensions of what it means to be loved or to feel like you're loved. The be together is, with others. It's that social thing. And being valued is what it is. Like all these things are what they are, but they're all the dimensions of. And the punchline is a new way of being is being birthed. So to sort of midwife that. And the group were all rooted in sort of, organizational transformation, teal, blah, 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 all that stuff. So I realized this sort of functions almost as a template that can be applied in other contexts. So home as a place to be. And it's about family. right? It's about, people being together and work as a place to be, but it's human-centered. And so I'll stop the share. So that was the download, and I'd love people's visceral reaction to it, because it got me really excited. But I thought about it. I came up with it, so I don't count.
Well, I think it's pretty astute of me to realize that we're kind of at what I consider church, because that's where that being is where I felt that before. And I don't think you need to lose that sense of being if you lose your faith. So yeah, it's a huge world. And so, yeah, it's almost like all of those world, you could say, you could almost put is to be loved behind each one of those words. To be together is to be loved. Being loved is to be loved. And, each one of those things is in that artistic, non-scientific world. So, and it takes both. I know that's not what the yin yang means, but, two parts. And I think that's something I had. You said, what you have to leave at the door to be here. It's the analytic criticalness, I think. More about experiencing what I would consider, Sunday church. This is our church. And I also consider like the kitchen table church, right? So if you have a kitchen table, you can have church. So, yeah, it doesn't have to be supernatural, but it does have to be human. That's for sure, yeah. And I think that's, in the times we're in, this is kind of what I think people are noticing. I think Josh was saying some things towards this. I think we all mentioned some of these things where it feels like a pivot point in certain ways because of that connection to being and how should we be. So anyway, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But how do you appreciate something like that without wrapping a religion around it? It's a trick. I guess of all of the spiritual ways that I've heard of, I keep coming back to the Native Americans with the earth, and Josh saying, covering the earth with cement is not the way to go. And I think that speaks to that type of being where you let the earth. And settlers, when they came, I think the natives didn't understand the idea of laying down, they moved around with the herds and things. So all of the places, their home. This is home. Welcome home. And then they said, okay, well, this is home where we put the fence. That means, get the hell out. This is my home. Totally different way of being. So, well, you guys can go on reserves. That's a good place. Like safe there. You can have your way of being there. Like total misunderstanding of what it is to be. And I think you can see that dichotomy in the way that colonialization takes over the home. Anyway. Yeah, I think to be loved is to respect your home. Yeah, for sure.
I was thinking, like how some people, you eat a healthy diet, but you still need to take vitamins and nutritional supplements. And I was thinking, where do you go to fill in what you have gotten in those places? Because none of those places are always going to be able to feed all of any one person's needs, because the people contributing to them aren't always going to be capable of that. Every one of us at some point is not going to be equipped to put out that love. At some point, we'll have just enough for ourselves that we might not be able to deal with somebody that's lacking. So I think that's what I'm most interested in. How do we fill in the gaps? And how do we know where to go to have those gaps filled in? I'm complete.
That's like, how can you be held when you're alone, right? Like, you can't have everything at once. Like, maybe you can't have everything on that list, but that's the ideal.
Tammy?
What I really just felt into in that is it's about belonging, right? Like we are together, and you know, there's the inner work, and then there's the work to be connected. And I like that piece that Colin said about this is church, you know, it is a place that we can come to commune. And that's why, you know, starting the meeting with an appetizer of random porn is not what we're doing here. And it's upsetting because we come here to connect and to go deeper and be, to belong, to be. That's what I heard.
I guess I have a negative bias when I hear church and any kind of, you know, any real, I mean, it depends on which church or which, you know, synagogue. Like, I've been to places where I didn't find that the people there were putting out what the institution claimed they were supposed to be putting out. So I don't know. I don't, for me, just adding the element of religion to it is, I don't know, it's polluted in some way. I can't find the right words, but it's,
Fair.
say it again.
Fair enough. And yeah, I did have a retrospective this morning with a friend, remembering my own 6 years in Christianity, then just remembering what that was like to be in. And it, beautiful people and limiting. And so I get it. Trigger word, trigger warning. Colin, you're muted.
That's what I meant to say, that can we have this feeling of church or communion without having the religion wrapped around it? And like jazz might.
Sorry, are you saying that you weren't advocating for religion?
No, I was saying like it feels like church, but it doesn't. Oh.
I didn't bring religion into this.
Oh, no. Religion.
Oh, there wasn't nothing.
Well, but can we hold this without having like a particular, as a human centered being feeling, which is what I said last time. I felt like that kind of a feeling. It's kind of a church thing, right? Where, so, but if you take away the institution and you take away the, you know, the things that Stacy was saying, where people aren't this way or that way, like can it hold together and exist as a being space without eventually wrapping a religion around it?
Yes, I'm sorry.
I think that's the whole point. Jazz?
Just to clarify this slight anomaly here, in that there is some sort of confinement. The only confinement you will find is the confinement that's within yourself. I have no confinements. Up until 93, I wasn't particularly religious, nor spiritual. And ever since then, I used to go to community meetings, and I still do. And I go to places of worship, places of meeting, all over the place with the express purpose of opening up. Let's have a conversation. We are grown-ups. If I go to a multi-faith meeting, I do not want to see people of each faith in their own little table and they don't talk to each other. They should get off the chairs and move around and have a little chat. Hello, how are you? Who are you? What do you do? How do you do? What do you... And you find that we're all doing the same things in more or less the same way. No difference there. So if you're circumcised, that's neither here nor there. If you have long hair, short hair, beard, no beard, missing mustache, purely cosmetics. Nothing to do with anything. Open up. Really, really enjoy a conversation about anything and everything. I even, a couple of years ago, a friend of mine had, a female friend of mine had a hip operation, and she went to a little town in North Wales to recuperate with another friend of hers who happened to be a Mormon. It was my first experience of staying with a Mormon family, because I was looking after my friend and making sure she got up, went for a walk and did exercises and things. I was treated like a family member. I was invited to the meeting, to the morning prayer, somebody's birthday party, come in, sit down, enjoy that. Where are you from? What do you do? It was really, really mind-bogglingly open feeling that I could talk to anybody and everybody about absolutely anything apart from pornography, which I really didn't want to talk about anybody. It was really like a huge family. And they have a church here in Wolverhampton, which I didn't know, only a couple of 3 kilometers away, and I'm quite welcome to go there anytime I want to, which I probably will. So when I hear people talk about something and that it's constricting, the constriction is already there. Open it up. Go and talk to somebody about anything you want to talk about. And if they are constricted, jolly well start opening up their minds in whatever way you can. And if you have to argue about things, yes, certainly, enjoy the argument. By that, I do have one little suggestion. Refrain from fisticuffs. Other than that, yeah, get warmed up, get excited, and say things that you wouldn't normally say, because you could go so far as to say you're anally constricted. Get over it, man, or woman for that matter. So yes, I have said this before, and I will say this with some gusto. All religions should and ought to lead to open up everybody's mind so they can go to the ultimate freedom. And if they're not offering you that, then they're not doing their job. They don't know how. Majority of them don't know how. They've lost the touch. And it is in the scriptures, it is written, and you have to dig through all the trash to get to it. Yes, it's a lot of work, but it's well worth doing, like everything else everywhere, including the famous demigod science. There's a lot of trash in there as well. You really have to cut through it to get down to the nitty-gritty. Thank you for listening. I'm complete. I hope it did some good.
Yeah.
So people have said a lot. So I may ramble a little bit because I'm trying to address and pull together a lot of what I've heard. But to make it personal, my son is in New York. It's probably the worst possible place to be at the moment. He missed getting out of New York by maybe 2 or 3 days before they really battened down the hatches. So it's really a concern of mine. I try and reach him every couple of days to see whether or not he and his roommate are doing okay. I do have a feeling about this being, quote unquote, the Sunday morning church session. I do think that this religion word, this church word, does have a triggering effect on a lot of people. And even among people who are religious, you know, there's a different connotation among them about what this really means. I like it in the sense that, you know, if churches are really helping people live better lives, that's what I think religion has been for throughout history. Recently, and by that I mean the last few hundred years or 1,000 years, it's been used for other purposes. And those are the purposes which I really don't like, this religious idea, this religious construct for othering, you know, that's the term we use here in this particular context, which leads to disagreement, which leads to conflict, which leads to argument, which leads to war, which leads to violence, which leads to death, all of that stuff. So I do return to this notion here that I would like to see expanded, which is we're here to see how we can disagree better. Can we model a way of disagreeing that doesn't lead to violence, that doesn't lead to war? And so that's where, you know, part of my my being, I guess, could be. This notion of looping that Josh brought up, it's a matter of where you put your focus. You know, if you're, you know, randomly bombarded by sources, yeah, it can feel that way. But if you sort of tune the radio a little bit and say, okay, I know what that source is saying, I know what this source is saying, I know this, you know, source is fairly reliable, I know that one's fairly unreliable, then it's not quite so back and forth. You know, you can actually get more kind of a full spectrum stream of information. And things will shift, you know, like the numbers will shift, but it won't be quite so back and forth and random, I think, as Josh was describing. So I'm hoping we can take a more systemic view of the inputs and the sources of information that come at each of us. And yes, under these stay-at-home orders, that's going to be very tricky, because it is, I definitely agree with Stacy. Every crisis is an opportunity for governments to exercise their power and authority. And it's already happening. You know, other governments have already done it. The US is trying to sneak past, you know, this bill to extend these war powers. It's really, really not a good situation. And the more we are in fear mode about the virus, the less we see what they're doing with things like court appointees, with legislation, with budgets, with war powers, all of this stuff, which does happen late at night, you know, when people are not looking. And there's a reason why some of these congressional meetings are held at 2 o'clock in the morning. It's really just barbarically cowardly and non-transparent. The emperor's clothes are off. The question is whether or not that information, that perspective can get to enough people. I don't think so. The mainstream media is very closely controlling all of this. And the problem is, when we listen to these alternate news sources that I refer to, the immediate feedback from those who disbelieve is, oh, that's not a credible source. That's alternate news. That's alternate facts. So it's easy to discredit when someone who's actually done the research and won't be accepted by the mainstream media pushes it out there in their own way, trying to help us, and we discredit them almost immediately and call it conspiracy theory. So we have to listen to the entire spectrum. You know, if we didn't, then we wouldn't know Edward Snowden. Actually, it was very difficult for him to get to Greenwald, but it took him a while. We wouldn't actually know Julian Assange, you know, who have done service for the world, and yet were labeled as political assets and other bad names, and even, you know, alleged rape, which I guess is still out there. And then this brings me back to this whole incompetence issue. Why is it not so apparent that the US is just bleeping incompetent in this whole thing? And why is it that we don't have a system that actually can allow more competent people to actually seize the reins? You know, I've been, I guess sometimes, you know, called traitorous, because I've never actually been a full-on supporter of quote unquote democracy. Because to me, I've always brought up this theme where democracy is a guarantee that the best ideas never get implemented. It's a guarantee. Absolutely and fucking lootly guarantee that the best ideas do not get implemented in a democracy. We need best ideas now. We don't need what the masses will accept. We don't need what the population understands. We need the best thinking out there. Democracy will not give us that. We need a very systemic rethink and revolution around the way we be as a society. We're not doing it right now. The way we be right now is we let an incompetent idiot, basically allow hundreds of thousands of people to die by taking lack of action and not, using the DP Act, Defense Appropriations Act or whatever. So let me get on to the fact that, when we have people who've been espousing foresight, systemic thinking, people like Bernie that I'm referring to, who for 40 years have been looking for the common person, the working class, the family, he's still being ostracized. And yes, this is where I get political, okay? Because it's time that we actually understand that all these remediation policies, those are very consistent with what Bernie's been saying. They're not consistent with what Joe Biden has been saying. They're not consistent with what Trump has been saying. They're not consistent with what Buttigieg has been saying, or any of these other people. And yet they've all kind of gathered and rallied around to basically demonize Bernie because they know he represents a revolution. They know he represents a return of power to the people. And the power will definitely fight that. And until we stay strong and actually realize Bernie is just starting something for us. Whether or not he lives tomorrow, I hope he lives 100 years. But this movement needs to live beyond Bernie. It needs to get to every one of us. And until we do that, we deserve what we get. If we're making excuses for Biden in the face of this Tara Reid woman who claims that he sexually molested her, and we now turn a blind eye as Democrats when we actually were all on top of Kavanaugh and on top of Trump for what they did, we're bleeping hypocrites. Part of the problem. And excusing Biden's behavior simply because, oh, Bernie's not electable, realize you're hypocrites if you actually believe that. So yeah, it's time to take the gloves off, There's time for action as well. Action is part of being. We have to actually understand the urgency of the situation. We all can imagine what another 4 or 5 years of Trump would look like. You think this is bad? It's going to get way worse if we actually have to deal with that. And not only that, at the end of that period, he's going to try and still seize and hang on to power. He's not going to go after 2 terms. He's not. He's going to do it. So this also, and now let me close with 2 more notes and then I'll shut up, okay? Because I know I've been going long. This is why historically, and for quite a long time, this notion of inclusion, I've not fully embraced. Because while we're still trying to think about what the world could be and design a system for the world, I myself have been holding to this position that it's not necessary to involve 8 billion people to design a system for 8 billion people. In fact, it's very impractical. So this all or none of us thing, we need to think about what that really means. If we really did mean it in the way that I thought it meant, we would not have kicked out the pornographers this morning. That was all of us. Now, that's a very testy thing for me to say. But this is my point to saying it's not been about complete inclusion. It's been about where the voice needs to be and what other voices can connect with it and who's really, resonating and who's really thinking systemically and who's really thinking strategically. And I know I'm being very pointed in this, but we do have to rethink how we be here in GCC as well. Part of my frustration, and actually the biggest source of frustration, is we've been going at this for 2.5 years, and yet we've not really had something to offer the world other than ourselves as hopefully different people than we were 2.5 years ago. But wouldn't it be nice if there were more that we could do? Wouldn't it be nice if there was something around, something we learned about collective intelligence or, interbeing that we could offer the world and be a shining light for? And I'm frankly a little bit frustrated and disappointed that I am not part of that. I mean, I am as much as possible, but we've not been able to offer that effectively. So I'll end now. Thanks for listening. I just had to get it off my chest. Over.
Thanks.
Thanks, Sam. First, I love you, man. I love your passion. I love your persistence and all of that. And I want to shortly come back to the main point, how do we disagree better? And I like to point to the complexity work from Dave Snowden and those people, because that's not about agreeing, but bringing different brains together to be smarter. I think that's the best thing we can do. Keep it short. I don't need to agree with you, but you have a perspective, I got mine, and combining them makes both of us smarter if we share it properly. I'll leave it at that for a moment. Thank you.
Yeah? You had your hand up forever.
There's a gaping hole in what Sam had to say. He's making an assumption there, a huge assumption about the intelligence of the average human being all over the planet, especially in the USA. That's assumption one. Assumption two, and I'm probably guilty of this as well, the assumption being that governments were formed for the protection of the people, going from feudal kingdoms and fiefdoms to what's loosely termed as democratic governments, and that the people somehow gained something when they gained the vote. Well, they didn't. First of all, governments were formed by very rich people who wanted to have say in the running of the country so that they could have more control over what they already had some control over, and that is true the world over. Secondly, the average intelligence of the persons that we're dealing with, their mentality, if you like, is extremely low. It's much way below average. And unless you go out and talk with them, you're not going to find out. Especially the way you talk. Unless you go out and sit in the street and you talk with the people there, you're not going to find out that they don't understand a single word you're saying. They may even not look what Harry's doing, a smile and yeah. And as soon as you're gone, thank God he's gone. I didn't understand a fucking word he said. Where did he come from? And as for voting, yeah, everybody feels, yeah, I'm doing something responsible here. Yes, I have to vote because I've been told I vote. If I don't, I'm wasting a vote. We have been brainwashed forever. And it is only in the last 75 years that the brainwashing is being loosened by the very people who didn't want us to be loosened, because they gave us in infinite wisdom education so that we could fight better on their behalf, never thinking that we would end up fighting them. That we would be able to understand the gobbledygook and the gibberish that they write, the legalese that they write, and be able to question it. And that is now leading us into a situation where more and more of us are becoming aware, and those who are not aware, well, we're looking down on them instead of trying to engage with them. And you get the likes of Trump and Boris, etc., and Modi, just to mention three, who realize the power of a short, sharp meme like, let's get Brexit done, get Brexit done. Keep the foreigners out, keep the foreigners out. It's like the teenage record. You repeat a refrain a few times and it's a hit automatically. This, unfortunately, is the frustration I feel too, is that when we go out and we talk with people and we talk about these things and they are pro-government, and they're against religion. They have no understanding, and they think that they're doing something which is helping other people, and it's not. They are in the way. They don't know that the government is there to screw them. They don't know that the government is going to carry on doing what they're doing right now, and they're profiteering from the coronavirus. They're profiteering from armaments, from killing people. They're profiteering from setting each country against country so that they can continue exploiting the price of oil. And I don't see people whose bread is being buttered by the governments. That includes the BBC, ABC, NBC, Fox, all the media. Nobody who has their bread being buttered by these corrupt people. They're not going to turn around all of a sudden and say, I figured it out now. You're corrupt and you're corrupting me. But I can't say that, because as soon as I say that, Mr. Murdoch is going to say, you can go home now. Bye. Don't come back. And that includes the biggest broadcasting corporation that the whole world listens to, and that's the BBC. It's corrupt. And unless people start standing up and fighting for it, it's going to stay corrupt. And to say that, well, let's be nice about it, let's not get excited, let's not start shouting, because that's not civilized. Let's learn how to disagree better. Then we can stay together and still disagree. No, I disagree with that altogether. Unless you're entitled to, unless you're going to look at the empirical evidence that's already available, you haven't got an argument at all. You're going to keep repeating the same refrains that you have and nothing else. That's not a disagreement together, happily, no. It's a one-sided thing. I'm thinking, well, last week I had a chat with somebody or other, and I seem to think, well, I put something in there. 6 days later, 6 nights later, it's the whole thing has been reset to where it was 6 days ago. It's all gone. Forget it.
Hey, how you
Would
doing?
it bother you if I run this off?
Does it bother me if you run this off? Sorry, I thought somebody was talking to me. So, unless we do something about it, unless we get out of our comfort zones as soon as possible, those of us who are waiting for recovering from whatever they've got currently, and go and tell people point blank, you are the problem, and you're telling everybody else they're the problem, and lay it out frankly and as succinctly as possible, we are going to keep going round in circles. And as for the GCC not evolving in the last 2.5 years, which Sam mentioned again, this is my last point, I disagree. We've come a long way. Those whose minds were totally closed, they didn't want to budge one iota, are budging. Different techniques, different hammers, different tools, they're all there to be employed. And if you're going to say, well, then ask yourself the same question. Are you part of the solution, or are you part of the problem? Are you stopping somebody else from doing something that you're not capable of? And then blaming them for it. I don't like the way you talk to me. I don't like the way you say things. You know, in the religion of the Sikhdom, the last refrain we have is when all other methods have failed, it is righteous to withdraw the sword. But you have to employ all other methods. And if you haven't employed all other methods at least 5 times each time, you haven't employed them. I'm all for it. I think the GCC is now beginning to be able to offer something. Anybody can now come here in whatever frame of mind that they have, and we can handle it. I'm complete.
Colin?
Praise be. Holy moly. Is now. Also taught how to say. It's like, good Lord. Okay.
Just also, by the way, I just want to be respectful of people's time, my own included. We're 10 minutes off the top of the hour.
Oh,
So you folks can clearly run as long as you want. I'm going to be going at 1, and I invite a round of closing shares if other people are similarly situated. Colin.
Yes, yes. So just to run down the last few notes from what I've heard, Sam, we're here. I think a theme for me as well is how do we disagree better? I do like the reframing of that in how do we understand each other? Because I think if we're actually trying to understand each other, you might not agree or understand what I'm saying. So you might say, you know, you may start asking questions in disagreement or correction or realignment. Just to say you disagree means we already have our minds made up and we're going to try again. So that's kind of one. So I like to approach it from understanding. And sometimes it is at odds and you know you're biased and you know you're not going to agree. And that's usually a cultural thing, not a human thing, if you ask me. Survival thing, whatever. But yeah, we can go deep into that, but I think that's a really good, important thing that we should be focused on in global challenges is, you know, how do we understand what it is we're trying to say? And to go to the end of what I wanted to say, from what Jazz was saying, are we even part of the discussion? So if I'm having a game of discernment with somebody and they're watching TV, then and they're not taking their turn, they're not rolling the dice, then they're not even in the conversation. So a lot of people, like Sam says, they'll make decisions at 2 a.m. in the morning where nobody's part of the conversation. So, you know, how do we allow a system where things matter where it doesn't matter? We're going to do it when we want to do it. So yeah, I think a lot of readjustment has to come in so that we are part of the conversation. And that's what I was alluding to at the beginning, that I think a lot people in our day and age, I could be wrong, are educated and have connection and can reach out. And I think it's reaching a critical mass where you even get entertainment in the morning sometimes. So, and it wasn't very enjoyable entertainment at that. So I didn't even know if we were going to have a meeting today. I thought, you know, the channel had been, until technical difficulties, someone, you know, had taken over Sam's channel. All it was is that Sam didn't have control of it for a second. I guess people could auto join. I don't know what was going on, but I'm sure that won't happen again. So yeah, so that goes to being able to have better ways to vote, being part of the voting conversation, and not gerrymandering, and not just the people who are near the posts, but, you know, everybody should be able to figure a way to be heard, whoever everybody is. Now, this all of us or none of us discussion, it always depends on the context. To start with, yes, it's all of us. The people in prison and the people not in prison, right? That's all of us. The people who did it wrong and need to go through corrections. Is that the way our society deals with people going the wrong way now? So do we, as soon as somebody needs corrections, we forget about them? So is that all of us? But do we want all of those people in this meeting, or how could we scale that? Like, I don't think that's possible. So we have to have a context. All of the people in this pod, all of the people in that pod, and all of us can breathe the air of the earth together. So yes, all of us can breathe the air of the earth. I can agree with that one. I don't think there's any way around that. All of us have to get our nutrients from the earth. I don't think we can get around that. But when it comes to designing a system, I think Sam's right. You can't have 8 billion people designing a system for 8 billion people. You can have 8 billion people in the conversation in some way or other, which brings me to my last point, which is jazz. Oh my Jesus. So how do you decide when you've exhausted all of the methods so you get to pull your sword? Like, that's the whole point. Who knows better? And how do you know your better is better than my better? Like, what is this disagreement you want to get? No on fisticuffs, but but if it comes down to it, I'll cut you up. That's just, and you also said that the average person is below average. Like, you can't have, like, your math isn't right there when all the average people are below. You got to be careful there with your judging of people's intelligence. Although I'll tell you, there's something to be said with people with different capabilities. And you keep flip-flopping back between we're going nowheres and we're making lots of progress between different meetings. Like, we're either going round in circles or we're not. So I am listening to you, and I think what you mean is that in some ways we're going around in circles, in other ways we're making progress. So I think we have to be a lot more specific when we talk, or else we're really not even in the conversation we're having here. So anyway, it's been a wonderful, I don't want to say spiritual, I don't want to say church, I'll say, what should I use, Sam? A good coexistence meeting. Maybe that'd be a good way to say it. I'm complete, thank you.
Give me an idea. The Church of Coexistence.
Josh?
I mean, how do you make it exist without wrapping a religion around it? Now, careful, Sam.
I want to be tax deductible.
Art
Tax
Brockhouse,
exempt.
you should ask him about that.
Yeah, I apologize. My stepdad is about to run a saw, so I had the mic open and he came to tell me that a saw is about to go and start cutting some wood. So he was looking out. But I just want to say a little block that happened, not to call you out, Sam, but when I said that things were looping and it felt like things are looping, you changed that word to being that I said that things are random. And I just took a little bit of hurt to that, because I'm not saying things are random. And I just felt like it just dismissed and I wasn't heard of what I'm saying. So I think that comes down to what you were talking about, is how we can disagree better. I think it starts with how we can listen better, and then we can disagree better, to actually hear what each other's saying. And I'm trying to do a better job at say what I mean. I just woke up. I literally, was up all late last night working on conversation.technology of how we can have better conversations and building websites and standing up different teaching moments, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm just starting to wake up now and the call is just ending. So I apologize. So when I'm half awake and I'm saying, oh, things are looping, I'll try to be more eloquent with my words to be heard. At the same time, please don't dismiss and say that things are random, because things are not random in any way whatsoever. And we're all here consciously together. And I really like what Colin said about being birds in a tree. We've flocked to this tree because it's a good tree, but it will be an even better tree if we listen to each other. And thank you for letting me have the time to listen to all of you today, so I have a better understanding of what's going on in the world, because this is where I get my news. The GCC, this is when we check in with each other, it's my news in not just our individual worlds, but our communities that we live in whether it's Wisconsin or the Netherlands or England or this beautiful Kimono Island in Seattle. I get the news of when, the cars are going by and how Sam's looking out the window. That really helps. And swiping on Tinder from maybe Colin's roommates, that's the news. That's what I'm listening for, is what is going on in people's areas. So thank you. With that, I'm complete. I just feel to disagree well is to listen well and say, I heard you say this, and then ask if you heard that and then disagree, as opposed to disagreeing against what you didn't hear. And that's what I want to work on with everybody here at GCC. Thank you.
Stacy?
I'll check out now. And yeah, I agree with everything that Josh just said. What I've learned for me too, that I really believe is true beyond a lofty saying, is that the most effective way to change the behavior of those around us is to role model that behavior. And I think when Jazz talks about people whose minds have opened up, I can only imagine that the greatest motivation to change is tied into that wanting to belong to a group. So if individually we're role modeling a type of behavior and a set of rules, anybody who wants to become part of that group is going to pick up some of those behaviors. It's just going to happen. So again, I'm just going to say that we're also here to help each other to keep role modeling the behavior that we say we want to see. And with that, I'm complete.
I'm going to check out. I love all of you. You float my boat. And, and I do believe we've come a long way. And it's all in the learning. It's all in the learning. And there's somebody who reminded me of something. Just the constancy and fact that we show up here and do what we're doing is a huge energy well. It's a center of gravity, and it projects out very, very powerfully into the world. By each one of us when we leave these sessions, but while we're in them. And so we don't necessarily need to know how or where or who's being affected in order to know that that's true. And at least for me, I believe that's true. So thank you all, and for co-creating this and the opportunity. And I'll see you soon.
Thanks, Doug. Thank you. So I'll do my checkout thing. What I noticed that I learned is, first of all, indeed listen and allow the other to speak and not try to win the debate. And then indeed just accepting to disagree and not understand and be curious about what I can learn from the other. Because now I'm just looking at a few of the minds, the faces that go with the minds that are present here. And I'm just, I feel blessed being able to connect over the globe with all of you and learn to you and listen to you and acknowledge all of you. So with that, I'm complete and checking out and staying connected. Thank you.
Since there's a lull, let me jump in. Hey, Josh, I do apologize if I sounded like I was putting the word random in your mouth. I don't think I intended that. And I certainly used the reference of you saying that it was looping. And I was trying to use the word random in an explanation or an exposition of that thought. So I apologize if that sounded like I was putting words in your mouth. It was just me elaborating on the theme that you had brought up. This when to pull your sword issue is a very interesting question, because people have different thresholds for what they will try and what is the end of the road for them. I think what I'm trying to figure out is, how do we say that the coexistence I'm looking for is to always stop short of taking someone else's life? And that's even got its own nuances. You know, when Trump did not act in time, are we then tracing back to him the hundreds of thousands of lives that will be lost in this crisis, to his indecision and his dismissal of intelligence briefings? Where else are we going to put that? He had the power to act. He had the authority to act. He chose not to. Do we consider that an act of violence? It's certainly an act of incompetence, which then, definitely has dire and in fact even lethal consequences. So yeah, I think it's a It's a notion that is worth exploring, I think, this idea of what coexistence really means. And then let me go back to, I'll close on this one thing, okay? I know that what people are interpreting in this disagreeing better is to understand better. And I completely agree with that. It makes perfect sense. But if we're communicating to people, people aren't out there in the streets mutually trying to understand each other better. That's not how they think about it. Okay, most of the people say, okay, I disagree with you. That's the language that they use. So I'd rather hook on the language that they use to then decide a point of intervention. Because if I'm out there and two, crowds are shouting at each other, I wouldn't actually be able to get through to them if I'm saying, you're really trying to understand each other better. No, you really, they're going to use the word disagreement more often than they use the word mutual understanding in that context. So this is a point about not speaking French to chickens, Chickens aren't capable of understanding French. And that's an extreme analogy. But we have to apply it where it fits, So when people aren't used to thinking in terms of, well, let me, come to a mutual understanding with you. No, it's easier to get them to understand that you're there to help if you use the word, here, I'm trying to help you disagree better. But it's still not a perfect word. I think we're still looking for a more perfect word. In the depth of it, yes, it is all about mutual understanding. But where you hook them into the intervention conversation, I think has to be a word that they recognize. Over.
Sam, I just want to acknowledge that you did the show don't tell of listening to Josh and responding. And Josh has the courage to say, hey, did you just kick me under the bus? Because those are real. And when I just think that is the answer to your question, is that you listen and then you respond, and with an open heart and owning your part. So thank you for that. I just wanted to acknowledge that on the way by. And I'm grateful to be here. And yeah, this is a big time, and we were all born for these times. And everybody does have their gift. And when we see each other and see those gifts, that's the beauty that the GCC, I think, has, is we've all gotten to meet each other and see what we each bring. And yes, there's been some crossed swords. And people don't always get along. It's not easy. And that part is real. And it's, everyone has their place and perspective that they come from in that. So, how do we not take things personally? I know I have. So I'm not immune. And, also, we're still here. It's amazing. And there's so much that each one of us brings to the table and to this place and to each other. So I just want to honor that on the way by as well. So thanks, everyone. It's been awesome to see you all.
Jasmine, did you want to speak, or are you wave? Go, you can go first.
Thank you, Tammy. Most appreciated. I could hug you. I'm going to keep this short and sweet. Drawing the sword, Sam, it's not to kill anybody. It's purely defensive. The Sikh religion is entirely defensive. It's a servile religion. It's not even a religion, it's a way of life. It's there to protect and serve. So when we draw the sword, it's just to say, that's enough now. Either you cease and desist, or we go to war, and the decision is yours. And the Sikh way of fighting is, again, completely defensive. It's never, ever been offensive. India is about the only country I know of. It's never, ever invaded another country, nor does it intend to. And the Eastern religions from that particular subcontinent further on, they're all defensive, including the Japanese ones, except that Japan sometime or other seems to have gone off the handle. And as for disagreeing, the word for two people or more who have a disagreement, the word is a discord. We have a discord, an impasse. And it doesn't mean that it's actually an impasse. It means for the moment, there is certain information that one party or the other party or both parties are not looking at, or they're refusing to look at. And they don't want to look at it in case it changes their mind. Now, the last item I have is the Mr. Trump. I've been in the Western world now since I was 12 and a quarter years old, and I didn't particularly become embroiled in politics till about the early 90s. Mid-80s onwards, certainly. There were certainly things happening which were drawing my attention. And more I was beginning to realize I was already, by that time, mid-80s, I was already in middle management. I was already in charge of a number of people and some sites. There was a day-to-day decision-making. Time was of the essence. Everything had to be done. The money had to be in by a certain time of the month so that the direct debits and standing orders at the end and the beginning of the next month went out on time without any money not getting to the end person, the creditor, on time. Reputation was at stake. All of a sudden I was learning that there was something more important than money. The phrase that I had at the time was, "Don't worry, it's nothing money can't fix," had a limitation. So yes, there were certain situations money couldn't fix. I noticed that governments came and went, that the incoming government always made promises that for some reason couldn't be fulfilled. Why? It's the same kind of thing that when you make a business plan and you put your ideas into it, and then they're not going the way you want it to go, then you have to ask the question, why? Because whatever's happening already, whatever's running already is in the way. It's skewing the direction that they want to go in. Obama certainly comes to mind, and to a certain extent, all of them. But Obama, who made promises about withdrawing troops, and he did the opposite. Nixon did the same. JFK was the one who started the wars.
Hey, Jaswinder, I kind of faded off. I
Point
lost.
here is when Trump got into office and he sat with his advisors, they told him what was running currently and why they couldn't withdraw the troops, or why he couldn't do that, or why more money had to be spent on the military. And also people who are in the Senate and who are the Republican decision makers, how they've got their money into various pots and they're making more money out of it, and they don't want to change things either. So for somebody who's coming in fresh with a fresh set of promises that don't happen, it's because of what's already running. The corruption is already there. And for another corrupt person to join in, sorry?
Totally. I mean, I agree. There's a whole pile of stupid.
Right.
Truly. And
So,
I gotta go, and I really want to hear.
the last point, the average and the below average person, and even those who do understand this, They do not want to change, especially since the mid-80s onwards, when a lot of the companies, government-owned companies were sold off. Everybody's got shares now. Almost everybody who's got, even I've got some shares left, which I was tending to sell off because I didn't want to be part of that system. So all these things that are happening, there is a reason behind it and people don't own up.
I hear you.
Got to talk with them. I'm complete, by the way. Thank you. Stacy, it's all yours.
Yeah, I kind of lost my direction a little bit. What I had wanted to say was just to introduce a slightly different perspective, which had to do with the way in which we feel it necessary to contribute to the space. And what I mean by that is, it seems that there is a need sometimes to say something verbally when it's really not necessary. And just thinking about the reasons why that happened. You know, when a baby's born, they cry because they need something. But for whatever reasons, as we get older, and again, I'm saying we, but I'm also saying different reasons. There just seems to be something to push us to speak when it's not necessary. And if we could just be more conscious of when we do that, and to be able to discern when it's our turn, when it's our time to get something out there, and when it's not, that would be helpful. Just one thing. And when there is something that we hear, maybe to go into it with a question. So like if I would say, Jesuit, why do you think it's A, B, and C? Instead of, yeah, but how can you say that when it's this? So that's all that's really what I wanted to say.
You're very polite. Superbly polite.
No, this wasn't just this. I thought I wanted to say this before you started speaking. This wasn't just directed. You know, I'm saying in general, I had to learn. That was really hard for me. I had to really learn how to discern when am I supposed to bring up a point, and when am I supposed to just look at it and grow from it internally. And I'm still learning.
So Harry had a really beautiful thing that he shared today, which was just about the new economy and just, here you go.
Can I?
Oh, maybe
I think these are the three properties with the other way around. I will mirror it. Then we will unmirror me. These are the three properties of the new economy as far as I can see. So it's grace, gratitude, and generosity. And it's not just like a woo-woo desire, but what we've seen is, I read an article in Wired about why Wikipedia is the only top site in the world that's not affected by all the economic things that are happening, because it's run by volunteers, or to be more precise, voluntarily by people who love to do it. So it's basically running on love. People are generous. Oh yes, Colin, yes. Read the article. Get yourself informed. When people are able to do what they're good at and what they like to do, they're happy to do it every day or not, but enough of that. So the economy could run on that. What we need to complement that is, of course, a universal basic income. If people have a roof above their head and food, and they feel safe, they'll start doing what they like to do. And there are so many people and so many talents available that this could be the model of the new economy as far as I can see. With that, I am complete again. Thank you.
And I will add, Sam, in one of the recent conversations we had, mentioned that there was multiple trillion-dollar investment in the Fed or the stock market at a certain point to stabilize everything? Like, what does that equal on the other side in human terms? I mean, these are the questions that we need to ask, and there's an opportunity to kind of give that some attention, because the truth is that something like a universal basic income would create
Safety first. It's interesting. I was away for 20 minutes and I had the same conversation that you just pointed to with my daughter. That's synergy, coincidence?
Sam.
Over. Sam.
I think the point was whatever the government, the U.S. government, or what passes for a government is talking about, you know, that amount that they're bailing out the market is 10 or, you know, some huge multiple of whatever it would take to actually solve poverty, to solve hunger, to solve healthcare. And yet they'll make that decision in 30 minutes, as opposed to, you know, for 6 years or 7 years or 20 years or 50 years, have this ongoing debate about not being able to afford healthcare for all. It's a bunch of crock. It's just unacceptable. So, yeah. There's this, geez, then I lost, I'll come back to it. I lost my other train of thought, sorry.
The reason the Americans don't want healthcare, universal healthcare, is that, as far as I understand it, it gets in the way of motivation to make people work. If people are not working and they're not eating, that is the motivation. And the UK picked up on that some 10, 12 years ago and ran the same model and called it austerity. If you don't work, you're not getting any money.
Well, I mean, the thing is that there is many presentations of stupid everywhere. So what's not stupid? You know what I mean? Yeah.
Okay. But as Sam has said, and I totally agree, it's a pot of crock. It has no meaning other than to try and save a few pennies, which it doesn't, and it's killing people off for no reason at all. Universal benefits or a universal wage or a universal salary is the way to go forward. And if people decide that they don't want to do anything at all, to sit and vegetate on the sofa and watch TV all day, that's fine too. Or if people want to go and do some meditation in the mountains because they've got the means to do that and not to starve, then they should be able to allow to do that. So it opens up a whole lot of things people could do, which currently they can't. All yours, Stacey.
Again, this brings up the whole thing of we make decisions emotionally. You know, I'm thinking of a few years back, I had become president of a condo association, and they had entered into a contract with a company, and it was, in order to keep the contract, they were going to lose. It would have cost them for the rest of their life. Josh, do you have to? Josh.
Yeah, go ahead and finish. I had my hand up before, but go ahead, please.
Okay.
The condo association.
The point is, I knew. The point is that I absolutely knew that it was going to cost them more money to keep this contract with this really bad, fraudulent company. And what I finally did is I wrote a letter to everybody, and I did the math for them, and I showed them, look, and it would have cost us like $100,000 to stay with these fraudulent people, but they were so emotionally charged that at the meetings they would come and they would say, we're going to lose $50,000 if we break this. But they didn't do the math to see that we were going to lose more if we kept it. So again, it's this emotional reacting, and there's not enough working through the models and then coming back and looking at it. Josh, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to, what Tammy just said is, you know, really hits me right here is what's better? What's a better way to do something? I mean, we can talk about all the wrong ways to do something. And I was a big fan, I still am, I'm a big fan of the thinking of Andrew Yang, who ran for president of the United States this cycle. And the thinking that he put out, I thought was really interesting, is the idea of metrics and changing the metrics. The biggest idea I loved from him is changing the metrics from gross domestic product, what we're putting out, to the value of what we're receiving in. And the example he used of his wife who's at home with his 2 kids who are autistic, and what does society value the work that she's doing as, which is 0. And that is the shift and the change that I think needs to happen, is the respect and the dignity for the energy that every human being is doing, but without the metrics. I always say to all my clients, you can only manage what you can measure. So if we can measure, like countries like Nepal use a gross happiness index, if you can start measuring the value of people by how fewer times you go to the doctor, how fewer times you use the resources of the community and save money for your community to use for other things, measuring the less amount of stress and problems is a better metric than gross. The person that came up with GDP said it's a terrible metric. And he said that very clearly. And the idea that Andrew Yang was running on was a campaign called Humanity First, and he was picking up the ball that Martin Luther King Jr. was running with to end poverty. And that was where he got the idea of universal basic income. And he didn't run for president because he wanted power or control. He ran because he read a book from a guy named Andy Stump, who's a union organizer who is very much into capitalism and unions. And he was the one who said we need to have a universal basic income because of the way that the economics and society is going. And so he went to the guy who wrote the book and said, well, someone should be running on this platform for president. There must be hundreds of people running on this platform. And he said, no, nobody's running on this platform. They just dropped the ball. And here it is, less than a year after his campaign had a lot of speed, that everyone's starting to think about universal basic income. But I feel without the metrics and without the dignity and the respect of each human's value, like Jaswinder said, there is value for people sitting on a couch because they might come up with the next greatest theory in engineering or mathematics or modeling. They might come up with beautiful things that they can give to a friend who is a machine worker and can create a new mask that takes out diseases, or creates a new HEPA filter for cars to take out COVID virus 21. I mean, the idea that our value is based on money or based on oil or based on gold, that to me is the revolution. And I'm just going to vent for a second, if you guys don't mind. Our country right now, I'm very pissed off at Bernie Sanders for not standing up for the unions, for the guy who just got fired at Amazon because he told people that there was COVID virus at Amazon, so they fired him. And a leaked memo said that they smeared him. They were planning to smear him in the media, which they've done. This just happened last week. But not standing up for the little guy. Like, Bernie Sanders represents the little person and standing up, and he's not doing that. And I'm very upset at the progressive movement for not calling for strikes and not calling for workers' rights and not calling for the nurses. Like, a lot of my friends are nurses. They're scrambling to my other friend who runs the unions here in California to get protection for the things that they need to take care of all these people with the COVID virus. I mean, we're not helping each other because our metrics are so screwed up. So I just wanted to put it out there. To do things better is to have better ways to measure a better economy. And metrics are really important. Math is really important. Go ahead, Stacy. I see your hand. I see you.
Not just because I want to defend Bernie, but why does it fall to one person? Because currently he's working on one thing he's working on many, but one thing that's particularly important to him. But why does it just fall to him to pick up that cause? That's what I find troubling.
Because he's the voice, and if you follow his Twitter feed and see what he's saying, he could be doing a lot more. I feel like he just self-defeated in the last debate that he had with Joe Biden. That's why I'm upset, is that he could have called him out and said, listen, the Obama administration took a lot of people on their administration and put them into big business to keep the workers down. He's keeping his mouth shut on a lot of things because he doesn't want to be perceived in a certain way. And I feel, you know, what he did in 2016, he didn't have the courage to stand up to Hillary Clinton and say, you don't have the right to steal this election from me. It's courage of conviction. And yes, he is a leader of the our revolution, the we can, and he does need to he needs to stand up.
But I also think there's some judgment, not knowing how somebody's making a decision in every given moment, to just place a judgment on that. I mean,
Oh, no, it's not coming from just like, oh, I'm judging. It's coming from the 12 other people inside the Bernie camp that want him to do it, and he's not doing it. And you can read all of this on Twitter.
but I'm saying even those 12 people don't know why. And this is not just about Bernie. I'm talking about in general. If I were to say, oh, Josh did so and so, because how do I know why you did it? If I didn't ask you and you didn't tell me, I don't know. So everybody in this meeting could assume you did it for a reason. That doesn't mean it's true. And that's a general problem I have all the time in lots of situations. I'm just, you know.
No, I agree with you. And that to me is, I'd like to hear those reasons too. That's what I mean by standing up for convictions. Tell us, Bernie, tell us the reasons. I'm not hearing the reasons. I don't know
let me
why.
interject a little bit, okay? There's been nobody who has stood up more and more strongly for his convictions than Bernie in the current political climate. So I actually find it kind of surprising that you would criticize him at this time. You can say you don't understand why he's not doing something, and yes, we can get into that conversation, okay? But he has been involved in workers' strikes, both at Amazon and in Detroit and many other places, okay? He's represented the working families. He's working for their rights to unionize. He's working for their rights to get health care. He's trying to, you know, separate health care from employment. I mean, all these things that he's doing make it very puzzling to me why you would choose to criticize him rather than say, let's find a way to support that. There's no one else in the political climate that's even come close to fighting for the common man as much as Bernie has been. Andrew does, but he's out of the picture now, you know? That is true. We can decide to argue that and debate that, but let me say, how do I understand you so that, you know, I can understand why you say that? But rather than saying, criticize Bernie right off the start, why not say, I don't understand why he did that? Why not say, I don't have all the information? So I do want to say.
I do have the information. If you want me to send it to you, I'm happy to send it to you. I'm not able
to share it here?
Tell you right here.
You know? I mean, you brought up the point here, so why not share it here?
Sure.
But either way, he's not here. He's not here to directly.
Right. Exactly. So rather than make these assumptions.
I'm not making an assumption, Sam.
You were when you criticized it.
Okay, guys, since it's just all about America, I think I can leave you guys to sort it out.
Yeah, you can absolutely. Go right ahead because.
Just to report, I was outside listening, so I can hear you guys really clearly outside. And the next door neighbor is playing beautiful piano, so I had this gorgeous. And I've been feeding these little tiny birds, and it just hopped right up, and 3 feet away, there's the little bird looking at me. So I mixed all that in with this ongoing experiment to agree to disagree. So bless the shit out of that.
Yes, beautiful. Don't go just yet, Harry. Yes, I wanted to respond because I was shaking my head when you were talking, and I don't want to annoy the Harry, the great gifter of hugs.
You got the mic, bro.
I'm on. I've had total equipment change. This has been such a long show. My phone died. I got it going again. That's the camera. When I just go like that, that's usually my phone dies without plugging in it. No, you were saying that if everybody were left to find what they enjoyed to do. How did you say that? You said that people would be able to best, be employed with doing what their heart song is or whatever, as opposed to being slotted into a work world.
Yes.
Could you say that again? Because
Oh, I don't know. I remember just
exactly, yeah.
Exactly. I don't know. But
Yeah.
that's, do you know the Ikigai concept?
Yeah, because I think it is that way. Like I hear things like that, and like Stacy, I want to ask questions about the context of what it is, because the context always seems to matter. And the conversation at the end of today, there's the context of the dependencies of companies on other companies in the world. You could say the old world, but it's the world we have. The stock market. There's a bunch of dependencies, and Jazz is saying, well, I don't want to say what you're doing because then I'd have to acknowledge that you're corrupting me, and then I'd be out of the game too. And so there's a chain of dependencies where people may or may not want to be accountable or responsible. And then there's the new world where we get to do what we want. We're going to go off grid, and I'm going to become an artist, or I'm going to do what I want to do, basically, or as you would say, people would do what people want to do. And I see that more of as a separate cosmos onto its own, like a guild, you could say.
I mean, it's not true for you, Colin?
I'm thinking that people that are able to do everything that they want are quite, if they ever get there, are quite lucky, I would say, because I don't know.
I would say.
Privilege too, yeah.
I would submit that every human being could have privilege, and that's the transition. That's the paradigm shift, is that everybody could have privilege.
And how do we measure that value, I think, came out of today too. Like we can't measure it the old ways. So we should come up with good ways to measure what we think we're worth and what we value.
Can I disagree, friendly, or
Sure.
Disagree better on that? I will share on, as soon as I found it, I will share on the GCC Facebook page so we can all look at it after this conversation. I hope the webinar that's been held by Dave Snowden and people like him, or otherwise a YouTube movie I saw of the guy, that measuring in this complex world, when everything is entangled, it doesn't help us anymore. Measuring is not helping. Everything is so complex and so contextual that the measures that apply in my Eindhoven situation won't help you at all, Colin.
Yeah.
So I hear your point, but it's basically also still the old static model that applies with measure, that you assume that the meter will still be a meter tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm not saying that we use the old meter stick to measure. In fact, I think I was watching, we should switch podcasts we're watching this morning. I was watching the one by Raymond Powell and about the protocol.love, which is actually an URL. You can type in protocol.love. I haven't yet, but it's hooked to new ways of measuring, I do believe, value, a protocol built on the human being, I assume. Don't know a lot about it. I'm pushing something I don't understand yet, but it sounded like a good group of people. I think they had a Zoom meeting. They were going to have a conference, but they got held off, so they had it online.
Mm-hmm.
And anybody, Josh, I think would have got a link, and Stacy in the PKE banter group, there was a link there this morning.
I'm
but
not in there anymore.
You're not in there. Okay, well, I can send you guys a link to that. I'd like to trade links with you, Harry. But yeah, I think
practically I will post my Dave Snowden's thing connection, and you'll respond in a response with your thing here.
Yeah. I think there are two people looking at ways of looking into the future of value, and what to measure, what you can't measure, and what's measurable, and how you can't measure the old way. That's another thing. So what things can we keep? Because I hear in this talk of revolution, I don't think it's a binary revolution. I think it's
a multiplicity. It's the metrics, many metrics of value.
Yeah, and many different fronts. And like, can you vote with your wallet and change certain corporations? Is that all that's needed? Because they respond to their sales.
And that's the old paradigm. I mean,
Yeah, it is, but it is the world we live in, and can we have our world? Like that's what I mean. Like I think it would be interesting to map out these different contexts. Map might be a bad word. Draw out these different contexts. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I say map, people think things. So, but it's true. It's the way I would map it, but I don't want influence. But no, to have a better idea, because I'm no expert in the economy and the stock market and what this dip means and what would what 20% to 50% of the stock market isn't corrupt, that is actually essential, that are we throwing the baby out with the bathwater when we're using general terms like stock market or old paradigm? That's what I think the details are within the context, and asking those questions and understanding which institutions, like for example, education could be done a lot better, but would you want to just throw away what we got, or would you like to, I think even tweak is a bad word at this point, but how can we salvage? And in these days of realizing that we have tools to work remotely, do we now make it a human right for connection so that people can be educated? Or are we going to go into a world where, again, only the elite are going to get the elite education with the new models through internet and high bandwidth, right?
I think that the opportunity right now is to observe what happens when all the supply chains shut down, and can have a look at what's actually happening and what the numbers are.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, but we're going to get a very good view.
Once we are where we're at, like what, 80 cents for gas, and what's gas where you are now?
Because it's like 70 or something. Yeah. So there's another angle though too, and so that's the business side of things, and then there's the the political side, or the political side of things. And just a simple comment, in my mind, the Republicans have lost all credibility of following in line with Trump, and not to bring it back to the United States, but that's another podcast I was watching. Who is this guy? Republican strategy denounces the party's response to COVID-19. But yeah, he talks about all kinds of stuff about how the party's failing, and Mitt Romney being the only one to kind of stand up against the shenanigans of Trump. You know what I mean? He was the only Republican that actually said, "Hey, this isn't the way we envision coexistence." But the Republicans say, "What do you mean? I don't see anything. What do you mean? What are you talking about? Everything's fine."
You asked to stay, and we're back in the USA politics. And I just said, okay,
yeah, well,
sort it out.
Yeah, okay, I cut it out, but I just wanted to throw that in and be done with what I had to say, because it relates to the old system. It doesn't have to be the United States. It could be other places in the world where the governments are becoming more authoritarian and they just are not part of a conversation. You could say, let's have a discourse, and they say, what discourse? There is no discourse. Goodbye. So, if you're not in the conversation, then you can't start expecting, oh, well, I think when people enter the Zoom room, they should enter this way, or they should enter that way, or we have to kick these people out. It's like, that's one context of conversation we're having here, but then there's larger contexts and different contexts. So if we mix the two in our conversations, it kind of becomes strange. So then I want to ask Jazz more about his defensive threats.
Okay, can I go now?
I'm going to.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Harry.
Hey,
Yeah.
Harry,
Yes.
I've actually been wanting to respond to your posting about Wikipedia being one of the top 10 items, because it's actually a very deep point. And I'm sorry to actually extend this conversation a little bit, but
Thanks.
I remember in a conversation at least 20 years ago, if not more, one person in the company I was working at was saying, explain to me why this open source thing is the new economic model. How can it be a good, effective economic model? And my first response to them is, you misunderstand it by asking that it's an economic model. It's not an economic model. It's an outlet for people who feel a need to contribute quality and to provide contribution, where they were not given that opportunity because they're so granularly directed to do exactly what was needed by the business and no more. And not to, make it excellent, just to make it good enough. Software engineers have always had a need to really exercise their skills, to create the best editor out there, the best web service out there, the best, whatever, okay? And because they didn't have it in a workforce, they needed to do it on their own. That's why Emacs, lives today. That's why just a billion things, Linux, which has taken over the server world, exists because companies could not find it within themselves to create something that was that clean, that powerful, that ubiquitous, that well architected, that transparent. Microsoft certainly didn't do it.
Thank you.
IBM didn't do it. So it's not an economic model. It's a model for contribution.
Well, shouldn't the economy be about contribution?
Well, and
Absolutely.
it's
That's what I'm saying. You
not
can't, though, think about it in old metrics terms, about profit, about quarterly results, about that sort of
The
thing.
word old here, because I feel we're past this, and reality proves that right here.
No, but I was saying that model has been something that software engineers have created for themselves since 20 or 30 years ago, and is only now beginning to be appreciated. And that has taken a whole generation. It's an entire generation for that
Agreed.
idea to actually kind of seep into the general mindset, the zeitgeist.
I hear some Doug Engelbart in there too.
There's certainly Doug in there, He wanted the whole internet to be about contribution and about collaboration.
And we tried the other way around, and that failed. And now we're back at square one, thankfully.
Yeah, so when you talk about economic models, this is what it triggers for me. It's where we can contribute and deliver value, deliver that contribution, connect with others who feel the same way.
Yes.
And that gets me to my very last point, and then I'll shut up, okay? Which is UBI is traced back to Bucky Fuller, right? Bucky Fuller said, we have enough for everybody now. We just haven't figured out how to do it.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I'm going to credit him for that. Over.
Over.
Blessed be. Thanks, Sam.
Over and out. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. So good to see everyone.
Great.
Thank you. And everything you just said, Sam, is exactly how I feel about Bernie Sanders. If he took your advice and did what you just said in politics, that's what I'm pissed off at Bernie Sanders for. So that's why I'm criticizing him, is he has the ability to do what you just said in politics. Open source it. Tell us what's going on so we're not guessing. But don't not tell us. So I just want to, I'm not trying to get into politics.
That's all I'm suggesting, is not to be pissed off. Try and figure out how to do it.
Yeah. I'm not being pissed off. I'm being critical of actions, and his actions at the moment are kind of weak. And I think if we don't call him out, then who else will? If we don't love him and tell him we appreciate
How do we love him by
done,
calling him out? We love him by supporting him. Unless you find somebody else that you love more, help him. Don't call him out. Don't criticize. That's not a loving act, Josh.
I did find someone I found someone I love more. That's Andrew Yang, and it's Humanity
He's not
First.
in the picture right now. He's out. He's dropped out.
That's bullshit.
He didn't.
That's bullshit. He is totally in the picture. He started his own campaign called Humanity Forward,
right.
And he just gave
So
$1 million.
Support that.
$1 million. He gave $1 million to people that need it. He's doing things. Bernie Sanders is not up to snuff anymore. I'm calling his administration out.
Okay, so we can agree to disagree about this, but I think they can both be effective. They can both work for the new society, but to criticize a front runner for the presidency of the United States who represents the common man more than anyone else, other than someone who's no longer in the elections, that's, in my view, not the most constructive thing to do. Over.
Fair enough. Yeah, if you don't think that's constructive, I understand it. But then somebody has to stand up. And I'm happy to be that person. So I'll stand it up and I'll move humanity forward. So I'll take those reins. I'll be that person. I'm fine to do that. But I think saying that you can't criticize someone is fascism. So please don't tell me who I can criticize or not criticize.
I'm not saying you can't. I'm saying it's not the most constructive thing to do. You're free to criticize. I didn't say you couldn't. I'm just saying it's not the most constructive thing to do.
In your opinion, it's not constructive. In my opinion, it's completely constructive. So let's just agree to disagree. And we'll see how.
As long as we decide to explore that mutually at some future point. Yeah, I think that's fine.
Well, I see an opportunity here. Go ahead, Josh.
I was just going to say, take a time, Sam. I don't know if you've been following politics this week, but catch up on what happened and go to Bernie's campaign and see what messaging he's doing right now at this moment in time. That's what I'm criticizing, not what he did. And I'm criticizing the last debate he had with Joe Biden. I think he just rolled over and let Joe Biden steamroll him. And that was weak. That's weak sauce. He's better than that. And I think if we don't tell him he's better than that, how is he going to know he's better than that? Because everyone around him is telling him to stand up and he's laying down. And I want to know why he's laying down like a little bitch and sign that bill that took away all the freedoms of America. I want to know why he's acting like a little bitch.
I was just going to say, like, I've kind of changed my language with the word criticize in this context for the word feedback. So if you're giving Bernie feedback, that's good. But then you call him a whiny little bitch. That's over the line of feedback.
Yeah, I think that's not engaging
I'm angry.
positively.
I'm upset. I have a lot of anger because he fucked me over in 2016 and rolled down like a little bitch. And then he said, oh, no, but we're starting our revolution. And he got Ocasio-Cortez and this whole progressive movement in there. But what are they doing? Ocasio-Cortez just rolled over to Nancy Pelosi. They're not doing anything for the people. They're fucking over the people. And if you don't stand up, what are you going to do? Just sit back and say, well, that's too bad. No, I'm going to stand up. I'm sorry. I'm not that person. I don't mean to use harsh language, but I'm passionate and I'm upset at the way that the progressive movement, they're not progressive. They're full of shit. So I'm going to stand up to it and call them out. That's all.
Yeah. Feedback works, especially for the people you want to support. Give them your feedback. That's why I still getting feedback from Jaswinder about certain things as well. So I don't know if you guys want to stick around and talk about that, or it's getting on in the day already.
Yep. I'm gonna go stand up some great platforms. And Colin, did you get to do your presentation yesterday? What happened? I wasn't able to get on the call.
Yeah, we did it. I didn't actually use, I didn't really have time to walk through the journey with a specific, as we had discussed about Bob or a painter, but I did mention the different contexts. So that helped a lot our discussion. So yeah, it did happen. I wasn't as prepared as I would like to have been, but I think it went pretty good. And if people are interested, it could go farther, but it was meant as a conscious thing for people to align themselves consciously, not to give them a tool, but to help them say, tools like this can help you think in better context, like where is it you're going and what are you doing? So it went pretty good. I think so. We had a vote on whether it focused, and there was nobody that voted that it didn't focus. So, but again, it was a bit of a forceful talk because it was more of a lecture than a community discussion. So obviously community discussions are a lot less focused than lectures. So that's not a very big finding there.
Right on.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for the catch up, and I'll try to find it if Sam posts it up onto the GCC. I'll go back and look at it.
Okay, I'm gonna talk to Jazz for a couple of minutes about the Kirpan.
Let me let you guys talk. And Jazz, you look a lot better. Are you feeling better? I feel much more energy coming from your spirit. Yeah. Thank you for healing you. I really want to say thank you for doing that.
I think this is the last stage of this COVID-19. And it's just the bronchioles are congested with all the gunge coming out of the lungs. I feel a lot better. I'm not breathing as freely as I should. And as soon as probably tomorrow, I think another 3 or 4 days, and I could probably start exercising without fear of my lungs aching or anything like that. And then I'll probably be 100%. Right now, I'm about 70%, which is not bad, which is good. I'm coming along nicely.
Did you get tested?
No.
Okay, so it may just be a little bit of a flu too. Or a little bit of...
Well, I'm not going to go through any of that. The only person who knows the symptoms I had is me.
Yeah.
So unless you know the symptoms I had, there's no point in telling me what you think it is.
Well, if you don't get tested, you're not quite sure. But it would be nice if people who...
Alan, I don't know which planet you live on. There are no test kits.
No, I said it would be nice if people who thought they had it could get tested. There
I
are.
can't even get to a medical profession. Everything's locked down.
Is that right? Well, it's not quite that lockdown here yet. But yeah, there's not.
I'm
There's
gonna
not.
say goodbye.
There's
I
not.
love you guys. I'll talk to
Yeah,
you later.
there's not an abundance of test kits, that's for sure. And I think that's one of the lessons that.
There are no test kits
Yeah, there's not many.
unless
Well,
you're a
there's-
multimillionaire, and then you can
Well,
afford
there's
to bribe somebody for one.
well, there's people being confirmed, so there are tests happening, but not as many as would be nice if anybody who figured that they had the symptoms. But anyway, we'll see. I think the new world that we're going to live in is going to have a lot more of these. How do you say, portable testing stations for all kinds of different things. I think that that's some of the innovations that are being made along with respirators. Also testing sites where people, you could have a public, they have them now for, you can get your heart tested for your pressure and different things. I think there's places you can get your eyes examined for near free. You can see what your eyesight is in a machine. Some of these things can be automated. It'll be an interesting world. But no, with the Kerpant, you're saying like like Sam pointed out, that's a really good point of where a discussion breaks down. So we were just discussing about the United States, and then you take it one step further, global, and then you can have like different cultures, or even within another culture, different set of protocols on how to deal with discourse / disagreement, or / I guess entitlement, you could say, is one that people seem to fight over. This is my land, or no, this land is entitled to us, and so we go to war over the land. So from the individual.
Have you any idea how this land business subdivision came about?
I've got a pretty fuzzy history of kings and Vikings and colonization, and then you have just ancient settlements of people that grow up that haven't been disturbed that much. So I guess wherever the money is, the people with the means to go get it.
It started before money was even on the scene. The chimps are doing it these days.
Well, I'd say money, value, same thing.
All living creatures are territorial.
Yeah.
Whether it's on the land, the sea, whether it's the worm or the tree, there is a territory to be had. If there is no territory, that creature cannot survive. So that, yeah. Having said that, we have moved on since then, since we started doing, I suppose you could go back to say, well, when we started becoming an agricultural society,
yeah,
then we had to have some means of bargaining. You have some sheep and I might have some goats or something, or you're planting wheat and I've got rye, or et cetera, et cetera.
You mean consistent protocol bargaining?
Well, whatever phraseology you want to use.
Well, I think there's always been bargaining, but
it still comes down to land distribution and land grabbing, or as the modern phrase is, resources.
Yeah.
And the last of the resources are being grabbed right now, and it's mainly the USA who's doing the grabbing, and they want it, and they're really, really fighting hard for it. And they want to keep that position, the #1 position. And we are saying that this system, this feudal system, this fighting system over resources is no longer applicable, because you have privilege. The way it's distributed is privileged, and it's mainly the white people who have the privilege, and everybody else is either second class, third class, or no class at all.
Yeah, well,
the white people are not listening, and they're just saying, fuck off. We're not privileged. We worked hard for every cent we've got, even if we use slaves to get where we are. You're not taking it away from us.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I've come across that that thought pattern a few times about entitlement.
So
versus-
that is the apex. And then as you come down the slopes of the pyramid, you've got other little apexes as well within other countries. So there are pyramids of privilege everywhere. And the word that comes to mind is the egalitarian society, where we treat everybody equally.
I don't think that works. I don't think that works. You can give people equal opportunity, but you can't treat people equally, because then you have people with no capability doing jobs that they can't do.
You're going too far, too fast.
Yeah, what I mean is,
No, what you mean
this is something that Jordan Peterson, you
No,
know.
no. Start from the bottom. What are everybody's basic needs? That's the starting point. Doesn't matter what Jordan says or whoever, anybody says at this stage. It's
Basic needs where?
what do you need to live?
Yeah, where? Like there's different basic needs, right? If you live in, the north, you need,
No,
or you live in the south, they're different.
too complicated. You need food. Every day you need a certain amount of food,
And who's not-
regardless of where you are on the world.
Who's disagreeing with that?
I don't know.
So that's true. And I think you can bring it back up to the point where people
No,
start
don't
to,
bring it back up. Go one step at a time.
well, one
What's
step
the
at a
next-
time.
What's the next basic need? This has already been done.
Yeah.
I'm only reiterating what other people have done.
But hold on.
Not
Hold
saying
on.
anything new.
I know, but you're changing the conversation.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, well, I was getting to the
I'm
fact.
moving from point zero, and that
Yeah, well-
everybody has certain needs. Let's fulfill those first.
I think we were talking about land and entitlements.
Egalitarian society.
I think there's a difference between treating everybody the same and giving everybody the same opportunity. I might not be
don't
saying that.
disagree, but you have to have a starting point to move forward from.
And different cultures decide that, where I start my base at is just simply talking, okay, we got food, we got warmth, we got shelter, we got Maslow's needs, a hierarchy. Okay, so where do we go from there? What would be better?
Then you're not getting an agreement with everybody.
Well, I'm saying that there is no agreement with everybody, because different people have a
We haven't-
different idea what's
We
better.
we haven't asked them.
Well, I'm saying there's a certain things you're talking about needs, and then you could also add in, well, how about efficiency? Can you do it more
How about
efficiently?
we go one step at a time?
Well, okay, if you need water, okay, so you need water. Water's one of those basic needs, right? So how do you get the water?
Steady, one step
Yeah,
at a time.
So I'm saying there's
First things first.
many ways to get
Everybody
water.
needs, let's change the word so that we understand sustenance.
Yeah, but I'm saying that, okay, we agree on sustenance. You're saying, let's go back and talk about it. And I'm saying, let's build upon it.
Right, next step,
To build upon it. Yeah. So I'm saying of the sustenance group, you have water now, but it takes that person over there in your tribe a day and a half to get the water, because they have to walk all the way over there and then walk all the way back.
wait. You just agreed that everybody has sustenance. Didn't
Yeah,
you?
but it's very, very hard.
Hold on. You're now saying that some people have more difficulty with sustenance and some people have less difficulty with sustenance.
No, I'm saying that if we had like one egalitarian group and we never knew about anybody else in the world, just on our own island, okay?
You're complicating things.
No, I'm simplifying. Let's just say we're living on an island, okay? Let's just and scale it up from there. Say that's the world. So we don't have to worry about all the different religions. We can get into that after. But let's just say we all are able to get along,
Colin,
able to talk.
Colin, I'd like you to stop there because you haven't even covered what Maslow covered, and that has to be agreed first. Those 5, 6 items that Maslow talks about.
I'm granting you those. I already said that.
No, you haven't granted me those because it has to be that everybody on the globe gets the same amount every day delivered to them where they are.
I don't see how that is something that wouldn't be a desired goal, but it might not be practical for reasons that I'm trying to
Is
say.
it practical that we can have 6 nuclear powered
No, it's not practical.
aircraft carriers,
No,
and
no, it's
that's
not
and
practical.
then another 4 which are oil powered, and that we're subdividing those into around about,
You're playing marbles in an ocean. Like,
yeah, I am.
so let's back up just to the island. Okay.
Well, let me back up and say that if we have enough firepower to be able to kill everybody over 5 times in 1 year, I think we can deliver food to everybody 3 times a day.
I don't know. Talking these grandiose strokes doesn't really help me focus on what I'm trying to say. So what I'm trying to say is that, and I may just lose my point in following yours.
I'll tell you what you said. You
I'd like to be
said,
talking about the same thing.
let
So
me
I'm
tell you
talking
what
about,
you said. Let me
we have our
repeat your
needs.
exact words. In that you don't think it's feasible that we can feed everybody on the planet.
Not you and I.
I'm not talking about you and I. I'm talking about the
Well,
whole world getting together and doing
Scale
it.
that up to the whole world. So the thing is that if we could, we already would, I think. That's my synopsis. Now, and we probably are already trying. So now.
No. Colin, you're too much hard work because you're not building up the pyramid, the new pyramid, step by step. You're putting your problems that you
No,
see.
I'm trying to ask you a
in the way.
question.
I only see solutions. I don't see any problems.
No, well, here you go. This is what I'm saying. I'm trying to set up a scenario, and you're just trying to say, well, let's just feed everybody. And it's like, well, okay, that's a nice thought.
No. Wait a minute. Let me start again. There are certain basic needs that everybody has. And food, sustenance is one of them. Then what's the next one?
Yeah. So what if there's
answer the question.
What if there's a corrupt government keeping the food from
No,
the people?
no. You're going too far. There are no governments. What is next?
If you're going to bring in nuclear powered ships to deliver food, I can say that when they gets there, the people aren't going to give it. The tribal leaders aren't going to give it to the people.
No, none of that. Let us assume that everybody will. Right now, how many people don't have food every day right now?
I'm just saying, is that realistic? I'm not saying it's not.
Okay, let's start from a different point of view. Let's just look at the people who are not being fed. How many of those are there?
I have no idea, but why are they not being fed? Is it because they can't find food? Is it because there's no food where they live? Is it because somebody will tell them, if you get up and try to get food, I'll strike you down, so don't even try to get food. That food's my food. Like, what's going on?
Well,
why can I go get food and they can't go get food?
Well, let's have a look. Let's find out who. First, you have to identify
this is exactly what I'm trying to get to. I'm trying to get to the practical matter. So I'm just saying, let's start on this island. Let's say everybody's getting food. Everybody's got their needs satisfied. They got love. They got it all. Okay?
No.
Yes. That's in the Maslow's needs. Love. It's in there.
No. Let's just stick with one item at a time.
Would you just let me finish my sentence and then you can go back to yours if you don't understand me? Because I might be speaking about something different. So what I'm saying is that if you do have, I'm trying to build up an analogy to how the stock market happens, kind of, all right? So you got these people not dealing with money. They're just trading back and forth. This guy fishes, this guy does this, they got water. She goes and walks a mile and a half to get the water. Takes her all day long to get the water, sometimes 2 days. If that water hole's empty, she's got to go to the next one. Maybe they'll have to have a meeting and drill a well somewhere. Oh, look, there you go, progress. So then they say, well, we'll have to ship a certain amount of our value in the day to drill that well, which means either. So eventually people make decisions and trade-offs for efficiency to make things better. And then they make it better again. Then guess what? They make it better again. And if a typhoon comes by and wipes them all off, then they have to start from scratch. Well, they will, but they'll make it better again and better again. So I'm saying, where do we say is the right place to say, okay, we can pivot now and do it the right way? Or a corporation comes in and says, oh, we're privatizing this, and you no longer can go get water. You have to buy water from us. Is that what's happening? Is there an actual, and that's what Will and Sam were getting on towards. Is there an actual thing that is keeping people from doing their best? He made the example of in the IT world, it was all being invented. Nobody thought it was worth anything. First computers were just jokes, right? You imagine the first computers were
The
jokes.
first computer.
We're not taken seriously. We're not taken seriously.
Let me interrupt you. The first computer was so important, it helped the free world win World War II.
No, I'm talking about going and buying like a personal computer or whatever. 64K is always going to be enough. They completely underestimate the value of this tool. Sure, it did something there, but a gun could have done it too to somebody's head if they would have had them, right? They could have broke the code, or they could have broke the person, right?
Colin, stop that. Good night. See you another time.
Okay, talk to you later.